Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. Brought to you by Blue Sky Business Consulting. We discuss 5 questions in about 15 minutes.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast. We are always grateful to have you here with us each week. And this week, I am very excited to have with us Rick Krebs. He is the principal and owner of the Business Sales Group, and that is right here in Heber City, Utah. So, Rick, thank you so much for taking time to join me on the podcast. What would you like the folks to know about what it is that you do?
Hi, Sean, and thank you for having me today. So I think the couple of the biggest things that I'd like people to know that I do is, one, I sell businesses. Been selling companies for 14 years now, lower mid-market or micro companies, anywhere from 2 million to 25 million in revenue. But the one thing that sets me apart is I am all about planning for the exit. These business owners have one chance to get it right. It's usually the single largest asset which they have. And so we need to get it right. And what I've seen is that many business owners leave millions of dollars on the table for the buyers to capture when they could have harvested that and they could have had a higher liquidity event. So I'm about planning for the exit. We started the Utah chapter of Exit Planners, which is the first chapter of its kind in the state of Utah, to help business owners and business owner advisors make better exits and put more money in their pocket when they sell their companies. So that's what I'm about.
Oh, I love it, because that you're right. I've talked to a number of folks myself over the years that they get ready to sell, and all of a sudden things aren't quite as rosy as perhaps they thought it would be, or maybe it's going to take a lot longer to sell than they thought, or whatever it is. And so having people like you to help guide people through that process and really plan ahead, that is really, really valuable. So I'm glad you're out there to help take care of those good folks.
Yeah. And one I'm going to share something with you is there was a recent survey of business owners who had sold their companies. And a year later, 75% of them regretted selling.
Really?
Yeah, that's the bad news, right? They just regretted selling. The good news is we can change that. If I can work with these business owners a few months or a few years ahead of time, we can change that to make that a sale where they're excited about it afterward and not regretting that they sold, usually for leaving money on the table or they didn't get the deal that they thought they did. And oftentimes these businesses aren't worth what people think they are. But the bad news is that with a little work, they can be worth that and much more.
Well, and you hit on something really important about this whole concept. And you said months or years in advance of the sale. That's for those who are thinking about their exit. That's good. If you're not thinking about it, you probably should be. Either way, talk to someone like Rick who can help guide you through the process of early stage exit planning so that you kind of know ahead of time what you're up against. And you can be putting things in place without feeling stressed, without feeling overwhelmed, and also surrounding yourself with the right advisors and consultants that can help you really get that business up in value so that it's an exciting experience and not a drudgery. So love that. All right. Well, let's get to our questions. Rick, talk a little bit about what it's like to make a decision on when to pivot in a company and how you can do that.
So when I look at pivoting, I think about an exit, right? And the best time to start thinking about the exit is when you open the doors. Like you said, to people wait oftentimes until the very end and they're ready to sell. And then we have a tremendous amount of work that gets condensed down into 3 or 4 weeks' time. And so the pivot or the thoughts about pivoting should start early on, and they should be something that evolves over time. Sometimes people, when they think about exit, they're like, my kids are going to run it, right? And most of the time the kids either can't afford it or, they're not capable. And so they end up doing an outright sale. Or how does that look? Maybe it's the employees that are going to buy it, or an ESOP. So there's a lot of different ways to consider that exit, but start thinking about the pivot early on and realize that you're going to pivot eventually. You're going to exit that business either by force, right? Death, divorce, don't get along, the 4 Ds, or you're going to do it your way. And it's much better if we can do it your way and plan that pivot. So I'm going to say plan the pivot.
I like that, because it is inevitable. There will be some pivots. There will be an exit, and somehow it's going to happen. So that's very good information. All right. Question number 2. Rick, share with the audience one of your company's core values and how that value helps you make decisions in your business.
So two core values that I have. One is I work with people who have a values alignment. And what I mean by that is I look for people who share the same business philosophy. They have a expansive mentality, not a minimalist mentality. They think that there's plenty to go around, and they're generous with their appreciation, and they're generous with the things which they feel are important. And so I would say you need a values alignment, number one. And one of the key values which we have is integrity. And that is that integrity includes complete transparency, that there's nothing, everything is above board. There's just no other way to do it. Things are better disclosed than they are discovered. And there's always these little kind of tricky wickets that we call them, just hair on the deal. There's always something that's a little bit different that people need to be aware of, and we get those out early. We get those out first and make sure that people are aware of them. And so integrity, complete transparency, and values alignment. Those are the three.
Well, I like that. Very good. All right. Question number 3. What's one tip that you have for those who are looking to hire and then retain talent?
So along those same lines, I would say the smart people that I work with, when they hire people, they don't hire them solely for their technical skills, but they hire them for their value set. And so you do hiring based on core values. And there's some different ways that you can determine what people's core values are, regardless of how their technical acumen is. It won't replace their values. And you have to look at, are they going to fit into the team? Are they going to be a productive and a valuable member of this team? And so I would say values-based hiring is the best way to do it. When you don't do that, it seems like you have problems, and you have people within your organization that are ruffling feathers and causing a disruption.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because it hasn't been clarified. It hasn't been clearly defined. And it has been confirmed, if you want to put it that way, with new hires that come in and they really don't understand what the culture of the company is. And it does. It causes problems almost every time. Solvable problems in most cases, but nonetheless, preventable ones as well. So,
yes.
Good information. All right. Question number 4. How do you identify and then develop strengths within a company?
So a SWOT analysis, one thing that we do as part of the exit planning engagement. But I think it's important to not just identify the strengths of the company, but to identify the weaknesses of the company. And how we identify those is through questioning. We question the owners, and through the exit planning process, what we do is we have different things that are filled out by the owners. And we're looking at, we look at their answers and look at their rating. And then I'm one of those guys that I have to ask the tough questions. People hire me to point out the gaps. And so in pointing out the gaps, not just in their financial plan or their money or their valuation, we also find those strengths. And I think, I remember a basketball coach, John Wooden, that used to talk about letting his players only shoot from a certain spot on the court. And he would watch them practice. And then after practice, he would go over and he'd draw a line around a 2-foot square. And he says, you can only shoot the basketball from that spot. And he had many national championships. I don't know how many, but he took the strengths of the players and he worked on those strengths, and they really promoted the strengths. They didn't focus on the weaknesses much. They just really focused on the strengths. And I thought that was a good approach to life and to basketball and sports. So,
yeah, I love that strategy. As you know, we were talking about this before we started the recording, but I'm a big proponent of strengths and really focusing on that and building strengths rather than trying to overcome weaknesses all the time. It's a great approach, and I think it works really, really well. So it sounds great. All right, our last question. Rick, tell us a little bit about your first job.
So my first job that I can remember was working for a farmer, and we picked vegetables, we picked fruit, we picked beans and squash and potatoes, and we were down on our hands and knees weeding. And so not an easy job, but was a little money. And unfortunately, we would, whatever money we made in the morning, we'd go to lunch and we would spend it on fast food. And then the money we made in the afternoon is what we ended up putting in our pocket.
That's kind of the way of youth, isn't it? We just kind of do it that way. So,
yes, it is.
That's awesome. I respect those who have really difficult first job experiences where they're out there, a lot of manual labor, especially out in the heat and the sun. And I'm sure that, outside, I'm sure you've experienced all of that. So thank you for doing that. I'm sure that that's created the character that you now enjoy as an adult. So that's awesome. All right. Well, Rick, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. How can people find you?
So a couple of ways to find me. One, my podcast, M&A Murders and Accusations. That's on all the popular sites for podcasting. www.b, like beta, bsalesgroup.com is my business, or you can find my book on Amazon, Sell Your Business by Design, Not by Default. Was one of the first M&A bestsellers to come out. And 3 ways to find me, or you can always email me, rick@bsalesgroup.com.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thanks again to everybody for joining us on the Team Engagement podcast. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, go to teamengagementpodcast.com. We also invite you to follow or subscribe to our podcast wherever you may be listening or watching. Is your business thriving? Go to tbs-score.com to find out. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great day.